Good evening, FSB officer. So-and-so, who are you? What are you? I show my Ukrainian passport. Oh, I see, they say. Unlock my phone in my pocket and write to my editor. I've been detained. Don't text me. I heard them in the corridor saying I ruined their sauna night, their prostitutes, their girls, and so on. Artem Valeryevich, you are engaged in illegal journalistic activities on the territory of the Russian Federation.
Artem Lysak is an international Emmy-winning journalist. A former sports reporter, he covered the Euromaidan protests in Kiev, which led to the ouster of a Moscow-friendly president in 2014, and reported from the conflict zone in eastern Ukraine. From 2016 to 2020, he worked for RFE's Crimea.Realities, reporting from the occupied peninsula under the pseudonym Nazar Sitnik for safety reasons. So Artem worked undercover in Crimea for 4 years, risking his life and freedom. He was reporting for RFE's Crimea.Realities, a unique source of news on the occupied Ukrainian peninsula, which was illegally annexed by Russia in 2014.
There was one serious condition. No one was supposed to know, and accordingly for a long time, a rather long time, I never appeared in the office. We met somewhere in cafes so that no one would see us, in basement rooms, discussing almost in whispers the topics we were going to work on. That's how, in fact, my journey with Crimea.Realities began.
After the Russian occupation started in 2014, it became very difficult for Ukrainian journalists to work in Crimea. They could be intimidated, beaten, or sent to prison. Since March 2015, journalists have been required to obtain accreditation from the Russian Foreign Ministry to work in Crimea. Ukrainian journalists were not granted accreditation, forcing those who wish to continue reporting independently to risk their safety and freedom.
I cleaned up my social media, all photos from Euromaidan, any photos with Ukrainian flags, with Ukrainian military, anywhere, I removed them from my social media. I deleted all chats. Yes, that was the first stage of preparation. I even deleted some phone numbers, knowing that some people, for example our editors, were saved under completely different names and surnames, so that if someone went through my contact list, they wouldn't find anything. Of course, the phone was completely cleaned.
Artem needed a cover story so that walking around with the camera wouldn't seem suspicious or attract attention.
So I even created a YouTube channel. I uploaded several different videos there. Some I just downloaded from the internet and uploaded as if I were interested in historic landmarks and so on. Some videos I filmed myself. And that was my cover story. I even tried to promote the channel a little to get some views, yes. My cover story was that I was a blogger, a marketeer, a copywriter working at an advertising agency. But I like Crimea, I like the air, I like blogging, nature. I traveled there and could, in theory, work remotely from Crimea. That was my cover story, and I stuck to it.
Even Artem's family and close friends didn't know about his trips to occupied Crimea.
For example, my mother thought I was going to Poland for work, and I explained why I couldn't call her. I said, I'm in Poland, I can call, it's complicated. Moreover, for a very long time, most of my colleagues didn't know either. My best friend knew, maybe just a few others. It was psychologically difficult, because first of all, you couldn't share with anyone what you were doing.
Artem had to keep moving and stay constantly vigilant to avoid anyone catching on to what he was really doing and reporting him to the Russian authorities.
I never, for example, when I traveled there, I never stayed in one city for more than 3 days. I had a large backpack and constantly moved around. There were times when I would get a paranoid thought that someone was following me. I would simply decide that I needed to move to another place. I would get on a bus in the evening and just leave, purely because I had a feeling, like, you know how it is. You see a person on a bus, and then later that evening you see the same person on the promenade in another city, and you think, oh no, I'd better leave. And you don't know, are you just imagining things? Is it a coincidence? Or is someone actually watching you?
He would visit up to 15 different locations inside Crimea in 3 weeks. But there were also times when he had to lie low to stay safe.
Once I was in Crimea when a sabotage attack took place in which Budanov was involved, right? And the roads were blocked. I was sitting there and realized there were some interception plans.
That was a secret operation in 2016 carried out by Ukraine's military intelligence agency. The operation was headed by the agency's director, Kirill Budanov. The Russian-imposed local authorities were trying to react.
I was in the Crimean spa town Alushta that day thinking, damn, what do I do now? There will be interception plans. And I'm always on the move, right? I think if they set up checkpoints on the highways, they'll catch me at the first inspection, and then it will all start. So in situations like that, I would just stay inside for 4 days without going out anywhere.
Once, while filming near the city of Kerch, Artem was asked to give his phone number to a local activist who said he had something to share. The activist called and suggested meeting up at a bus station, but he never showed up.
I'm standing there and I already see 2 typical offers from the FSB. And I understand what's happening. And they say, "Good evening, FSB officer. So-and-so, who are you? What are you?" I show my Ukrainian passport. "Oh, I see," they say. "Please, have a seat in our car." And I say, "I'll walk with you, but I won't get in the car." And the 2 of them walk ahead, while I try to lag behind a little. I unlock my phone in my pocket, glance at it quickly and write to my editor, "I've been detained, don't text me." That's all I managed to type before immediately deleting the chat.
At the FSB office, Artem was interrogated. Based on their accents and lack of knowledge about Crimea's geography, he was convinced they were Russians.
And then it started. One person conducted the interrogation, then another came in and asked the same questions. Then a third person arrived and asked similar questions. They had already taken my phone. At some point, an FSB officer came and asked, "Artem, do you have a brother?" I thought, well, my contact list was completely cleaned. My brother definitely wasn't in there, but I decided not to lie. If they wanted to find out, they would anyway. So I said, "Yes, I have a brother." "And a sister?" I replied, "No, I don't have a sister." He said, "That's strange, because your sister just sent you a message." One of my editors, whom I managed to text, had written pretending to be my sister, asking how I was doing.
It was then he decided to tell the truth.
At that moment, I pulled out my RFE press card. By then, the first lie had already surfaced. This was about 3 hours in. I pulled out my press card and said, "Guys, I also film for RFE as a freelancer, traveling here and there." They responded, "Understood."
They searched his rented apartment and seized his laptop and equipment, but they didn't find anything illegal. Then, fate intervened. All of this happened on a Russian holiday, February the 23rd, the Defender of the Fatherland Day.
I heard them in the corridor saying I ruined their sauna night, their prostitutes, their girls, and so on. They called their boss, and the boss arrived, and he didn't know what to do. And they didn't know what to do either. They were all outsiders, and they realized that now there would be a pile of reports, a lot of work.
To avoid ruining their holiday, the FSB officers suggested that Artem record a confession video. The idea was that he had come to Crimea just for easy money, filming only for financial gain.
And then the chief, by that point, a crowd of people had gathered, says, "Look, we'll let you go now, but you won't go making a scandal, will you?" I say, "Guys, I won't cause any trouble. I don't want anything. No. I say, "Me? What? If you want to film me on camera, I'll say whatever you tell me to say. All right, tell us that you came here just to make money, to earn a living."
After recording the video, Artem was released. Not believing his luck, he boarded a bus at 5 a.m. and headed for the administrative border.
As I left Crimea, I thought, never again, that's it. No way, I don't need that kind of experience.
After his ordeal, Artem put his fieldwork on pause. He worked in the office of RFE's Ukrainian service in Kiev for 6 months. But eventually, he started thinking about returning to Crimea again.
I thought to myself, listen, maybe they just didn't want to write those reports. Yeah. I thought maybe they didn't officially document me. Maybe they just forgot about me and that's it.
So he resumed his work for about a year, filming videos and producing reports in Crimea, until someone reported him for doing what the authorities called illegal journalistic activities.
Then one day, I got a call on a number I had bought at a street kiosk. They said, "Artem Valerievich, could you come to the FSB office in Simferopol on such and such a day at 1 p.m.
He turned up at the designated time and place where he was informed of the charges against him.
A man had a file with my name on it. He opened it. There were some papers inside. I don't know what they were, but they said they had key evidence, a CD. They said, Artem Valerievich, you are engaged in illegal journalistic activities on the territory of the Russian Federation. And then they showed me a video. They said, this video was filmed by a very vigilant Russian citizen. This is you in Sevastopol on July 30th. I looked at it and recognized that it was actually in Saki, and it was from the year before. I told them, can you please check the video properties? I pressed the properties button and it showed the year 2018. And they just closed the file and said, alright, this disc won't go into the case materials. There will be a trial, and so on.
For his second interrogation at the FSB, Artem was accompanied by Edem Semedlyaev, a prominent lawyer known for handling cases involving persecution by the Russian occupying authorities in Crimea.
Edem told me that most likely if they were handling everything so quickly, the trial and everything else, they wanted to open a criminal case and could even transfer me to the Russian region of Krasnodar Krai. I asked, what should I do? Wait for the trial or try to leave? He said, you have to make a decision, it's 50-50.
Russian occupation authorities accused Artem of engaging in illegal journalism and lying on his migration card that he was traveling for personal rather than work-related reasons. He decided to take a risk and leave Crimea before the trial. So he went to the administrative border.
I alternated between using my internal Ukrainian passport and my international passport, just so I wouldn't appear too frequently in the system. That time I handed over my international passport, which doesn't include a patronymic. But then the border guard called me back, Artem Valerievich. At that moment I realized they already knew. They had checked. That same border guard kept stepping out with his phone, coming back in, stepping out again, and coming back in. I stood there thinking, 50-50. In the end, they let me through. That was the last time I was in Crimea.
For Artem, crossing the administrative border back to the Ukrainian mainland was harder than entering Crimea.
I always felt like I was being watched, like they were waiting, just keeping an eye on me, waiting for the right moment to catch me. And when you finally leave, when you cross the administrative border and they let you go, it's an incredible feeling, like a wave of relief.
In total, he made about 30 work trips to Crimea over 4 years. And he says he doesn't regret a single trip.